All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Dave. This is the Radical Independent. Got a very special guest on the show today. Haven't had him on for quite some time. He's back to give us his very unique perspective. Please welcome the host of the Lone Wolf Ace slash podcast, Charles Anderson. How are you, Charles?
Doing very well, much better than yesterday. I'm not froze over today. Weather in South Carolina was lousy yesterday. But glad to be back on the show, Dave. It's been quite a while since I've been on. I missed having our old chats and things, but it's been a long hiatus. I've been keeping up. You've been doing some really good stuff over here. I've seen some of the guests you've got on, and it looks like you've had a big, sprout in channel growth too. So I'm happy for you there, buddy. You're doing a lot better than me. I haven't made many videos lately. So.
Hey, it's all right. Most of that, Charles, is, and I hear this all the time. Most of it is I get these comments like people say, "I'm not here to watch you. I just get to Ritter." I've had guys on from the Libertarian Institute, antiwar.com, had Dave DeCamp on last week, really sharp guy. I've been fortunate to have these people despite, what you're looking at here. But I wanted to have you back on for a number of reasons. Number one, Charles, your takes on things I think are very unique. They're entertaining, but a lot of times they have a lot of wisdom in them. It's not just like you're this elitist, looking down your nose from your ivory tower at the world. I mean, you're a working class guy. So you're pretty blunt, you're pretty straightforward. I wanted to get your take, Charles, because this balloon thing has kind of taken over the world. You can't really turn on a television right now without hearing about the damn balloon, which was shot down apparently off the east coast of the United States after it was allowed to drift aimlessly. And apparently, Charles, we've decided that we're not going to meet with the Chinese because of this balloon. We're not going to talk about, peace and trying to get along in negotiations. It's interesting because I'm kind of a libertarian these days. I'm more libertarian than anything else. And the right seems to have a big problem with China. The left has a big problem with Russia. And it seems that China and Russia are starting to kind of come together. At least with trade and, just trying to get along with each other in a civilized world, in a new multipolar world. I want to say vortex for some reason, but that would be the weather you had yesterday. So what's your take on this balloon thing and how we handled it? And what about this rush to just go to war with pretty much everybody that we can?
Well, here's the first thing that I've been seeing floating around about this balloon is that apparently this isn't the first time that it's ever happened. Apparently these things are known and they've happened before. They've gone over other countries, but you've never really heard about it until just now. Now, maybe this is just years of stuff making me a little paranoid here, but my first thought would be, if it's been happening all this time and we just now hear about it, what are they trying to distract us from?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I kind of wonder. I'm like, okay, if this has been going on and it's been around all this time, usually they come up with a very convenient topic to watch the shiny thing over here while something else is going on. They've done it numerous times. One example off the top of my head, they always seem to find something to throw out there to take your attention to when it's time to, I don't know, re-up the Patriot Act or something, right?
Yeah.
So that happens a lot. So that's my first thing is, what are they trying to distract us from? Or maybe I'm just paranoid about it at this point. On the other hand, if we were going to shoot this thing down, I mean, I keep hearing this stuff about, the balloon's the size of 3 buses and we don't want to cause injury to civilians. So they wait till it completely drifts over the entire continental United States and it gets off the coast of Myrtle Beach and right here in my home state, ironically enough, South Carolina, and they shoot it down over the Atlantic Ocean. Well, apparently the mayor of Myrtle Beach has even come out now asking questions about it, going, why did you let it get this far? Like if it's over here to spy on us, how'd you let it get to this point? Like, why did you let it drift all the way out here and then just wait till it's completely out of the way and then shoot it down? My thought on it, first of all, is I don't know. I feel like our government really wants to tread carefully with China. Um, I've been saying this for a long time. China has really put the United States in a bit of a pickle for a very long time. The way they've handled trade, we're miles behind them at this point.
Yeah.
They've figured out how to get their hooks into other nations by means of infrastructure. We tried to do it through dropping bombs and shooting guns.
Yeah.
Okay. They get what they want from another country by going in and building up the wreck, in some cases, probably even a wreck we caused. Then they go in, fix them up, and say, oh, yeah, now you let us get access to this. Afghanistan, for example, we spent how many years in that place? We don't have anything to show for it. The Taliban is back in charge, and
Yep.
you know, the Chinese will be able to extract minerals and things like that by the time this is all over and done with. So they're miles ahead of us. They've got us over in trade. So when somebody has really just got you by the balls that bad, you really got to tread carefully on how you deal with them. You're not really approaching this place from a position of strength. It's like that little chihuahua at this point. Unfortunately, that's what I have to think that our country is in terms of China. That little chihuahua, it's an ankle biter, and it wants to sound real bad and big, but I mean, when it's standing in front of a Rottweiler, what do you do? Now,
Mhm.
granted, we spend all this money, we bulk our military up, but ultimately, they've got all these means. And one thing that I've heard floated, and I don't know, this could specifically just be a spy satellite. Where it was spotted, there were ironically nuclear silos in that area. So maybe it was just for spying.
Yeah.
But one theory that I've heard floated around, and I think this is at the very least interesting, is what if this is something that they're trying to perfect on how to do EMPs?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I've seen that. That the fact that you mentioned that, Charles. I mean, I'm listening to you, and it little chills. Listening to the EMP, because that's pretty much the end if they do that.
oh, yeah. I mean, modern society is hooked to devices, cell phones, computers. If you take that away, a lot of millennials, Gen Zs, or even beyond that. I mean, it's not just even young people anymore. I know a lot of even boomers who are just hooked to phones and things of that Gen X. It's taken over society, and for better or for worse, when people are so dependent on that to live their daily life, and then you just rip that away from them, it's like somebody that's on a drug. You just yank it away from them cold turkey, they get the withdrawals. Well, that's
Right.
what people are going to do from this. They won't know how to survive. Not many people know how to live off the land. It would fry your car. So how do you travel? I
Yeah.
mean, all this stuff runs on technology. So EMP like that just fry out technology. You're talking like apocalypse Armageddon type living conditions at that point. And that's the big thing with China. They don't have to have the bulk military. They don't need all the boats. So they don't need the warships. They don't need the planes. This is stuff you've heard Snowden talk about in the past.
Yeah.
They got the technology. And really, the only reason we buy all the bulk physical weaponry that we do, if you want the truth, is just because we have DoD contractors who lobby the government to sell it to them so they can make money. And if they can't sell it to this government, they need a war somewhere else so they can sell it to them.
Mm. Yeah. 100%. 100% on all you said. China issued a statement on Friday, Charles, saying that the aircraft, the balloon, was essentially a weather balloon made for civilian scientific purposes. It's civilian in nature, used for scientific research such as meteorology. Um, what do you say to that? Do you think they're telling the truth?
I say that weather balloon is to weather or that balloon rather. Let me just rephrase that because I'm laughing still internally in my head. That balloon is used for weather, like waterboarding is used for baptizing terrorists. Okay, it's not used for that at all. I mean, okay, they've got this thing that has been around for a very long time called Doppler radar.
Yeah, yeah.
And it picks up weather patterns very well.
Yes, it
Okay.
does.
Now, for a country who has this sort of technology that we were just referring to, you mean to tell me they don't have that they've got to float a freaking miniature Hindenburg or some shit all the way over here? Pardon my language, folks, but I mean, no, it's not believable.
Right.
Not believable at all. And not only that, but you've got reports of these things being floated around into other countries in the past. They've shown up, I think, in South American countries. Again, it's not the first time we've had them over here. I mean, what is there's just something specific where, oh, we want to see what the weather's doing in that part of the world. Here's a bright idea. Go online. You know what? Because where I work, there's a place in there that just the security department, they keep track of weather in case inclement weather is coming.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get a sponsor out of this. Shout out to an online website called WeatherTap. And that's what they use. And when you log into it, you can pick wherever you want to be. And you click that little dot, and you know what it does? It brings up Doppler radar, and it'll tell you what the weather's doing. Now, if the rednecks in South Carolina can figure out how to do this, you can't tell me that the Chinese Communist Party don't know how to check the weather anywhere they want to in the world. I mean, seriously, that almost sounds like something that, Joe Biden or George Bush would have come up with. It's so ridiculous.
Well, you touched on a couple of things. The nature of this is such a distraction, Charles. The shiny object, in this case, it's literally an object floating through the sky for days, and people are talking about this and nothing's happening. Former President Trump came out and basically said, hey, you need to shoot that balloon down. Marco Rubio, my amazing senator here in the state of Florida. He, by the way, is competing with Lindsey Graham in your state to be, the most war hawk senator. I don't know who's actually more.
I was just about to say you've almost got it as bad as I do down there.
Yeah, and I'm in a so-called free state, Charles.
Yeah.
So, but is there something that we missed? Is there something that happened last week, like a $2.2 billion arms package going to that wonderful Churchillian leader in Ukraine by the name of Zelensky?
Yeah. You had that. If it wasn't last week, it was maybe about a week or so before that. Biden announced he was going to be sending, what was it, tanks, right?
Yeah.
Tanks. So, yeah, all this stuff that keeps getting sent over to Ukraine. And so it takes your attention away from the foreign affairs. Mm-hmm. It also gets the talking point onto something else and off of a lot of domestic policy too. Because one thing, and this is just living everyday, day-to-day life, week and a half or so ago, everybody was talking about the fact gas shot back up.
Yep.
Everybody was talking about the fact that the price of eggs has gone astronomically high. Everybody's talking about how much worse the living conditions were. And then all of a sudden, I walk into work one day and the topic of conversation is this damn balloon. So it's could be taking your attention away from what they just sent over to Ukraine, could be trying to get people focused off of how things are getting worse again. And this, by the way, only after Biden just declared how much better things was getting. I think he put out a tweet At least it
Wow.
may have been a month ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, about how gas had gone back down. And this just goes to show you, yeah, that it went back down for the midterms.
Yeah.
Then they gave you some slack, and they gave you a little Christmas present.
Yeah.
Then the new year came, and then they just jammed it to you one more time. It's politics.
Didn't they drain the strategic oil reserve to get to that point?
Well, yeah, I remember hearing something about that too. But I mean, it's at the same time, and this just goes to show you that the government has no moral compass on who they will do business with,
Right.
because they've been, treating Venezuela like pariahs
Yeah.
for how long? And it was within the last year to a couple of years, Maduro was not the president of Venezuela.
It was Guaido.
Juan Guaido is the real president of Venezuela. And it's, a coup that he's not allowed to go into power. Even though you got these people out there like throwing stuff at this guy in the streets, right? They're out there throwing rocks at him, and he doesn't seem to be very liked amongst the people who apparently elected him. But here's the catch. This whole thing pops off, and then I remember, and this was back in 2022, all of a sudden, I think it was Exxon or Chevron. I don't remember, but one of the two got permits for the first time in forever to start drilling for oil in Venezuela again. So all of a sudden, we've got another boogeyman, and now all of a sudden we want to do business with these guys again. It never ends. There's no moral compass here. It's whoever fits the needs of the empire best at that particular time. We'll do business with you.
Yeah. No, again, Charles, this is why I want to have you back on. Good insights, and right to the point there. The whole issue with China, it's interesting because I'll watch both sides of the duopoly. On one side, you've got the Trumpians. We're all, China, we need to do something to stop China, human rights issues. Funny, there are all kinds of human rights issues all over the planet, but they're going to focus on China, who, we've tethered our economy to China in a way that it's just so hard to unhitch from China. If we do it, I think we're going to be in trouble, to be honest with you. I'm kind of a free trade guy, although I understand, that one thing Trump campaigned on was the fact that, China was eating our lunch. China really didn't stop eating anyone's lunch. Trump he scaled it back a little bit. But really, their influence, they're buying up land. They're doing all kinds of things. I don't think foreign governments should be allowed to buy land here in this country. If you're a private citizen and you move here and you want to buy land, I don't really have an issue with that, but it's bizarre. It's like Bill Gates owns all of this farmland, and eggs are $10 a carton, and that's, that might be related. But I'm wondering, Charles, all of these boogeymans everywhere. And meanwhile, and you mentioned this, the economy here in this country has been bad for a while. They still can't say the R word. They can't say recession. And we know what it is. I lived through 2008, 2009, 2010. That was a recession. It was the Great Recession. So how would you compare this to that? Or is it kind of similar territory? Is it worse? Is it going to get worse?
I think it's going to get worse. We didn't have, in the 2008 stuff, you had the housing market issue. You had the stuff with Wall Street. You had what happened with GM. You had all these things kind of happen at one time. But as far as what was going on in the world stage, the only thing I really heard about as far as China was concerned was that they were putting lead paint on toys. Just going back to that point in time.
Drywall.
Right. You had that kind of stuff. I think we had a better relationship. I think that's pretty easy to say with Russia.
Yep.
At that point in time. Things in the international stage were not nearly as chaotic. Furthermore than that, the people themselves were not as divided. Now, Obama came along there. I think there was some big divide that sparked over that, whatever reason it may be. Some are going to say because it was the first black president. Some are going to say it's because he was pushing a more left agenda, I guess, when he campaigned. Not that he ever delivered on that, really. But ultimately, society was not as fractured as it is today either. There have been a lot of things that have happened since then, and to me, it looks like a society that's on the verge of just completely unraveling.
Yeah.
And so, outside of the economic troubles, there's just so much crap coming together at one time
Right.
and just raining down on everyone's head. You've got, society, the woke mob,
Mhm.
basically, that they're all touchy triggered, and you got to be canceled for this, or your free speech has to get censored for that. We've got all these elements out there. There's civil unrest. There's people that don't want to get along. Everyone's looking for something to complain about financially. It's becoming more of a struggle. The world itself is getting deeper into chaos. These are ugly times, man.
Yeah.
It's like I said, me and you spoke before we started the video here, and everyone talked about how terrible 2020 was. And like I told you, my
Yeah.
2022 was worse than my 2020.
Yeah.
Even financially,
Yeah.
it was worse than my 2020. And that was supposed to be the big one because that's when Rona came around, right?
Rona.
Now, to touch on the thing with China and our government, outside of trade, outside of all the other things, can you think of any other thing that would tie to China that people like potentially Dr. Fauci might have some connections to,
Yeah. Well,
or Dr. Barrick?
yeah. Well, and I was complaining about this 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and you had to be really, really careful, Charles,
Still
what you
have to,
said. You know, you couldn't say, and you still can't say certain words.
right?
Or our video here will be censored, banned. You can still go watch it over on Odyssey or Rumble or whatever, Rockfin. I'll find a place for it. But the point is, if you want to communicate important information, for 3 years now, it's been really difficult to
Mm-hmm.
warn people, to tell people, hey, there might be another way to fix something or solve a problem. And the whole issue with China, yeah, there's most likely a huge problem there, a connection there. Also, Charles, to pivot over to Ukraine, our friend Marco Rubio gave this epic little, well, it wasn't a speech. He was talking to Victoria Nuland, and I'm sure you've I'm sure you've seen this clip where he's asking her about the biolabs in Ukraine, and
Right.
Victoria Nuland is like, well, Senator, there are bio research facilities in Ukraine. And
Right.
Rubio, like a good little boy, different party, although Victoria Nuland is interchangeable. She could work for Bush, she could work for Biden. It doesn't really matter. But he comes along and says, well, we just don't want those wascally Russians getting a hold of those bioweapons, right? And they're all kumbaya. Yeah, that's great. Good going, Marco. You can keep asking me questions. I think people were a little stunned that Victoria Nuland kind of let the cat out of the bag there. Yeah, so we're funding bioweapons research labs in one of the most corrupt countries on the planet, Charles. But the balloon floating over the United States, that's headline news for six
Yeah.
days running.
Yeah. Well, and they don't want you to focus on things like that, because if everybody just heard that, it wouldn't draw great reactions. You know what I mean? When everybody praised Fauci with the way he handled a lot of the other stuff, but when they found out about the puppies
Oh yeah.
That pretty much just drew everybody back. You know what I'm talking about, right? With the puppies and
Oh
the
yeah.
flies. Yeah.
Research.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody kind of heard that and they're like, what is wrong with you? Now, if they heard that you were developing bioweapons, thanks to Hollywood,
Hmm.
enough of us have seen movies that kind of lay out what happens with that sort of thing. And it's really scary how
Hmm.
much some of these things can tie into real life.
What is it? I am. What is it? I am Legend. Remember
Right.
that?
Even better, this is completely off topic, so I'll just hit on it for 1 second. But I was reading this the other day. Enough of us have seen Jurassic Park movies
Oh
that
yeah.
there's some private firm or research facility, whatever, that's trying to recreate the woolly mammoth to fight climate change. Seriously, look it up.
No, no. No, I've saw that story, but
Yeah.
how is the woolly mammoth gonna fight climate change?
Well, the one thing someone pointed out to me, and like I said, I don't want to hit on this too much because it's off topic here, but someone at my job pointed out, we were just talking about it one day, and he said, now, climate change, they're telling us that cows passing gas is destroying our ozone layer. This is a woolly mammoth. How big is a woolly mammoth? Could you imagine the gas that's going to come out of a woolly mammoth? If a cow's tearing up the planet, what's a woolly mammoth passing gas going to do?
Hey Charles, Charles, I can one up you. There was this pipeline that was going from Russia to Germany, and it got mysteriously blown up, and it let out more gas than I think they said 100 years worth of cows, 24 hours a day, nonstop, at full tilt after eating burritos all day. I mean, I'm being
If
trying to be
if
funny here.
if the world's cows were like that scene in Blazing Saddles, right?
You're killing me, man. All right, that's
But
it's true though.
but back to your point there. You've got all these things. Why we don't want to piss off the Chinese, and again, it's to the point I was making earlier. Who will we do business with? We'll do business with just about anybody, any country, as long as it stands for our interest. And you know, we brought up earlier, or you brought this up, Russia, China getting closer together. And ironically enough, I'm sure, like the guy or hate the guy, and I would say he did some good. Obviously, we could point to one big thing he did pretty bad, but Richard Nixon is probably spinning in his grave right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because, like that guy or hate him, he was able to open the relations with China, and he did it strategically in a way he was trying to prevent the Chinese and the Soviets from coming together with each other. And he played both sides like a well-tuned violin.
Right.
Okay. He got one side afraid of the other. He opened the relations, and he got the Soviets afraid of like the Chinese taking them over.
Mm-hmm.
So he played everyone well. Well, the thing about the way governments and militaries and all that it's like a chess game, and they're always moving these little pieces on behalf of the empire, right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, the problem is that look at the people who we've elected in the last 30 years.
Yep.
The problem is you've got imbeciles working the chessboard now. Okay.
Right.
And not only do you have imbeciles, you've got wealthy imbeciles paying those to go do whatever. And so the corruption has literally almost eaten us from the inside out, truth be told.
Right.
And so you've got rich billionaires who aren't focused on anything other than their self-interest. They buy the politician, or the DOD needs a war so they can sell weapons. So Honeywell, Raytheon, Boeing, all these people, they got to make something, right?
Yeah.
See, all the countries who outsourced to Mexico or to China, by the way, shout out something this guy warned would happen.
Prospero.
Okay. When all these other places left, look at the people who really stayed. And look at the ties they have with the U.S. government to sell them something a lot of times. GM, even though they've outsourced some too, but Honeywell, Raytheon, all those companies that I listed out earlier, they got all these deals to manufacture this stuff. It's the arms race. It's the military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about. And the problem is, I don't think that there's any coincidence in this, which would be one of the things Russia complained about. All these countries that join NATO have to bulk their military up.
Yeah.
How do you bulk up your military? Well, you got to buy stuff for it.
From us.
Who you going to buy it from? So, I mean, that's literally, I mean, it's an empire. You got all these people that get elected to office. And honestly, you know, Dave, me and you, one of the things we always talked about was this third party stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've said it a little bit, I'm just going to come out breaking news. I have pretty much given up with party politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really have.
You and me both. People ask me, you know, are there any good politicians in DC? I go, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5.
If you were successful in replacing the Republicans with the Libertarians and the Democrats with the Green Party,
yeah.
Let's just say you made that happen. You know, they figured out a way. You've got all the corrupt elements still involved. They're going to be bought off.
Yeah.
They're going to be bought off. I mean, there's so much. And unfortunately, while I think that our Constitution is a great document, I think it has a lot of great things that should build a great society. Some of the founding fathers put rules in place to be checks and balances on each branch of government. And now the problem is corruption has got so massive, those exact same checks and balances have become a double-edged sword. Because now to get some of these corrupt elements that have been snuck in there over time, you want to get them out of the way. What hurdle do you have to go through to get it done?
Yeah.
It's not that easy. You talk about getting, like, you know, you're talking amendments to the Constitution. Okay, that's not so easily done.
Correct.
Supreme Court overruling something. Well, you got to have the right amount of justices that agree with you to do it. Yeah. These things aren't that easily overdone. So, I mean, again, this is what I said earlier. So I don't know when, and I would like to think this wouldn't happen because I'm sure it's not going to be a pretty picture. But I from what I've studied from history, we're getting to a point where I fully expect society is just going to melt down, collapse, and at some point revolution is going to happen. The question is what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And that's always the scary part, because a lot of people have had revolutions. Very few have had revolutions that you look back on and say, that was the best thing that come out of it. The revolutions, you know, for Germany, that's how Hitler came to power. You know, Castro came up from a revolution. Some people praise the guy, other people don't, for obvious reasons. Yeah. You had what happened with the Soviet Union. A lot of people wanted Lenin to be in charge, but it wound up being Stalin. And therein lies the problem a lot of times. Revolution, it's usually not the most calm, timid, peaceful type folks. They are not eager for power in the first place. It's usually the greedy, power-hungry people, the people who have a lot of the Napoleon complex, or God, who's that guy? They're very
Justin
Machiavellian.
Trudeau?
No, Machiavellian.
Oh, I was going to say Justin Trudeau, but
oh well, yeah, that's a good example of it for sure. But they're very smart. They're conniving. They're very methodic, and they want power. And unfortunately, if they're good at what they do, they know how to work people, and they'll take advantage of the chaos. They'll get a big following, and then that's where they come from. Literally, if you want to think of it just in terms of party politics, it's how somebody like Donald Trump came along in the first place.
Right.
Same thing for Hitler, same thing for Castro. It's a person who has an element of charisma that takes advantage of other people's suffering, and they use it to their advantage to come to power.
Yeah.
It's how it works. And so I don't know how we're going to do it, but people are going to have to wake up and stop believing everything that's just being force fed to them. And that's a very uphill battle. I'm not sure how you can win it, but that's the only way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's become tribal 24/7. I'm
Yeah.
on this team. I don't agree with the other team. Or sometimes, the other team might have a good idea, but because they're the other team, there's no way I'm going to vote for this because then they'll win.
Yeah.
They'll get a win. And so you've got nothing. I mean, I know you might have researched this already, Charles, but there was this graph that talked about how both political parties like 50 years ago
Mm-hmm.
would agree on certain things in a
Mm-hmm.
far greater way, in a cooperative way. Like if an idea came from the Republican Party and some Democrats liked it, they vote for it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, what happens is, oh, that's a good idea. Term limits, that's a really good idea. Nope, came
Mm-hmm.
from the Republicans. Plus, on term limits, I don't want to be out of a job, so there's no way I'm going to vote for that. So it's just like, it's the it's like that little hourglass that keeps spinning and you're trying to load a page.
Yeah.
It just keeps spinning and it doesn't. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I watched a lot of more right of center politics for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a lot of what gets said, but none of it gets done. A lot of it is about manipulating the audience and working them into a frenzy about an issue. And then you send somebody to Washington, and what do? They just cave in, they collapse. They go, here, a great example would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She's a firebrand. She says what she's, and she's voting for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker out of the box. It's like, no, I realize that we can work with Kevin. He's going to be great. And most of the Republicans, at least not the rank, the Congress, but the rank and file Republicans are like, no, this guy is a squish. He's just going to do what the establishment wants him to do.
Yep.
And you had that little 5-day revolt where he couldn't get enough votes, and then supposedly he promised to vacate the chair. I think if 5 people come along, I don't know what the rule is, but okay, great, and so then we're back to who do we put in there? And yeah, is this maybe better than Pelosi? But it's not going anywhere because you already talked about this, the checks and balances, which seemed like a great idea to the founders, and it is. In theory, you don't want one part of the government just taking over, whether it's the Supreme Court or the legislature or the executive branch. You don't want that happening. But now what's happening is it's total, complete gridlock. Not only do you have to overcome that, but then you've got people who just can't agree and won't agree because they don't want the other side to get a W. It's right. Just stupid.
Well, that's what's happened with things over time. And you brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene, and let me just throw this out there. This is the same person who went after Tulsi Gabbard for attacking George Santos.
Oh, yeah.
And how much more crap has come out about that clown since she done that? You know what I mean?
You gotta keep him in place, though, Charles. You gotta keep him there because.
But I mean, seriously, have you no shame? Let's talk about Republicans and those on the right. I'm in South Carolina. Yeah. This state's about one of the reddest states you're gonna find.
Yeah.
Okay. And so living here, I know that it is a big thing. And it is to me too. I'm an independent, and I've said this many times. There's some things I agree with on the right. There's some things I agree with on the left. I try to find the best of both sides. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's got it right all the time. Right. And I too, mainly coming from, I guess I've got people who were in the military in my family, like, a grandfather from World War II. And veterans are a very touchy subject for a lot of the conservative crowd. They want to see veterans taken care of. Mm-hmm. And I sympathize with that myself, because the way I look at it, right or wrong, whether we should have been in the war or not, they went out, they put on that uniform, they put their life on the line, and if they're coming home and living in the street, that, to me, that just doesn't sit well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That being said, this guy, one of the things that just came out about him, he like scammed a veteran who had a service animal that had this giant tumor, if I'm not mistaken, and he was trying to raise money to get surgery for this dog, which was his service animal. And he got in touch with this Santos guy who raised all the money, and then all of a sudden disappears. They can't contact him. He was using a fake name. Now there's stuff like, is even George Santos this guy's real name? I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. I mean, to me, that's just downright despicable. Yeah. And if you're going to be, Republican or Democrat, you don't even have to call yourself anything. You can't say you care about the veterans and then you are wheeling and dealing with a guy that's sick. I mean, I'm sorry. Every person in the Republican Party should run that guy out. They should be running that guy out of office faster than they got rid of Spiro Agnew and Richard Nixon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, those guys were railroaded.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, for crying out loud, they kicked Spiro Agnew. They got Agnew to resign as vice president over tax evasion, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then, of course, they got Nixon to resign over Watergate. This guy has got scam after con a mile long, and yet he's still sitting there. And I think he resigned from his committees, but resigned from office.
Right.
I don't know if they've got the ability to I don't think they could just kick him out right out of office, but there should be such pressure on this guy. I mean, treat him like the biggest pariah under the sun. But if you don't, you're sending a loud message. You've got no shame. You've got no moral compass. Mm-hmm. And it goes to what you said earlier. They get elected and it's theater, man. It's just politics. They don't care about one thing but lining their pockets.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything for the voters.
They all get richer, and they don't, I will say this about Trump. I think he's one of the only guys who didn't get richer. I mean, he may be getting richer now that he's not in there.
Right.
And who knows what he's going to do with all that money, especially if he runs again, he doesn't get elected. So we just don't know.
To be fair, though, even with Trump, if you really follow the money, which, I see the book there in the background, Jesse Ventura, he loves to say that, follow the money.
Right.
Even when Trump was president, if you really follow the dollar signs, he got real touchy with or real comfortable, I guess you could say, with the Saudi Arabian government.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was even $1 billion given to Jared Kushner at one point.
Yeah.
Money.
Well, I'm still mad about the measly $1 million that Pfizer gave him for the inauguration. And and I got a lot of people, because I was more, for Trump, obviously, than anyone else for the past few years. But I left that train finally left the station for me when, he's coming out saying, this is the greatest thing in the history of humanity. If I didn't do this, millions and millions of people it would have been like the Great Plague of the, 1918, whatever that was. I'm sitting there going, really?
Right.
Really? But Pfizer, this, again, if you're watching this and you're a little, you're a Trump fan, it's fine. It's okay. You can keep watching. Information doesn't hurt, right? So $1 million from Pfizer, a guy who met with Robert Kennedy Jr. prior to all of this, and they were going to form a little task force to figure out what was going on with autism and things like that. Now, I can't go too much further, Charles, because then, our video won't post here. But all of a sudden, Charles, after that, for some reason, he became the father of mRNA. It's just, I don't know. So that's a big issue for me. It's been for 3 years. I'm sorry. Look, here's the thing that I do want. I don't expect the president to be the Pope or, Billy Graham or whatever. But here's what I do expect. Show a little bit of humility. Like if you're
Absolutely.
wrong, just tell people, hey, you know what? I had a change of heart on this. I got some new information. It happens all the time. It happened with me a lot. Happens, I'm sure, with you where you go, wow, I didn't know that. I'm going to have to reposition or reformulate my ideas on this. But here's a guy, and if you read any of his books, oh, it's a sign of weakness to admit you're wrong. Really? Have you been married before? Wow. I mean, and he's been married, right? A bunch of times. So he should know better. He should know. But in the real world, Charles, admitting that you're wrong is a thing that you have to do. And if you don't do it, there's going to be a price to pay at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's also, and this is me too. I never admitting you're wrong comes across to me as you're just arrogant.
Yeah.
I've said this a lot of times, and I'm very old fashioned in certain ways. To me, I respect you more when you have the courage to come out and admit that you're wrong. Or if you don't know something, don't BS me. Just say you don't know. Conveniently enough, again, to reference Governor Ventura, that's what he did in a debate one time. They asked him some question. He had no idea. And he said, I don't know, but if it's important, I'll learn about it.
Yeah.
And his popularity soared for that. So to say it's a sign of weakness, no, it's a sign of honesty.
Yeah.
It's a sign of honesty. And if you're an honest person, you're more trustworthy. And unfortunately, that's, and I know a lot of people who are still Trump fans. My mother-in-law loved Donald Trump. But one thing, and I've said this for a long time, is unfortunately with him, I think he did a better job than a lot of the other presidents we've had. But at the same time, he does, at least from my observation, he does most of what he does based off his ego.
Yeah.
And however that gets played up to the best, and so he's one of those people, if you know how to cater to his ego the right way, you will get his ear a lot of the times, and you probably will get your point across to him. And that can be a very double-edged sword. Unfortunately, some of the people he put around him all the times didn't really help anything. It looked like he tried to bring in some people toward the end who might have had a good bit of sense, like a Colonel McGregor, for the example. But this is all after you've had like John Bolton around you too.
Yeah, and who did he launch his South Carolina campaign strategy with the other day? Lindsey Graham. And I'm thinking, okay, all of you died in the wool. What is it? America first, whatever else, make America great, MAGA. Is Lindsey Graham MAGA? Is he make America? And then they go, but Dave, Trump's got a strategy. He's got to work. It hasn't worked though. Working. No. Remember that guy that ran in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz, and he got beat by a guy who just had a stroke. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, that was a great endorsement, huh? You couldn't beat the guy. Fetterman has a stroke, can barely talk, says good night when he's introduced. Good night, America, or something like that.
To be honest, I mean, Trump really got his clock cleaned all the way around in those midterms. Most of the people that he backed.
Yeah, the only guy that won that was any good was J.D. Vance in Ohio, but and there might have been a couple others that are more, not as important. I think J.D. Vance seems like he's an all right guy. The rest of them, and again, who knows what's going to happen in 6 months or a year once the lobbyists are banging on the door. See, here's my ultimate theory, Charles, and I think you've got an executive branch, you've got a legislative branch, you've got a judicial branch, and then you've got the other branch, okay? The branch that's above all three of those branches. These are a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. Some people call it permanent Washington. There's all kinds of cool names. Deep state is another one. It's not really that deep though, Charles. It's right there. I mean, you can see it. I mean, all these people were appointed, so it's not deep. So in order to fix it, you would have to you'd have to eliminate. And that would mean all of these alphabet soup institutions, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, you go down the list. And, Space Force, why do we need Space Force? Oh, we could have shot the balloon down? No, you got the Air Force. It's redundancy. We're going to have war in space. Can't wait for that. So, Charles, until we fix, and this is why I'm kind of black pilled like you are a little bit on this, is that you can't fix this. And then you got these other people that don't believe that the elections are safe and secure. And I'm not going to go down that road here, but I have a lot of questions there as well. But it's not because you lose. That's not why the election isn't safe. If you win, obviously the elections are great if you win. If you don't win, then the elections don't work. So I guess all of that to say is that in the end, until we fix the system, the brokenness above all of what is supposed to run the place, including the judicial branch, which again, it shouldn't be partisan. If you're gonna like figure out what the Constitution says, study the Constitution and study the original intent. I know that sounds very conservative. It also sounds very libertarian. Find what they meant, and then it's like people who study the Bible. They don't try to some people try to reinterpret it, and then it doesn't mean what it was originally meant to say. It's called deconstructionism. This is running rampant in our culture when it comes to history, when it's coming to some of the social sciences where people are like, oh yeah, like the gender issue and all this stuff now, which is people just are redefining stuff. And we can't, this is why I think what you said about societal collapse is spot on, because all of these different institutions are failing simultaneously. And in the end, you've got yourself. We always used to say on this show, you own yourself. But more so, it's you, your family, your God, your local community. If you can fix the HOA down the road, if you can fix your town council or your dog catcher, or something where it impacts your life at the local level, personally, I think that's where you focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I know we're going to have to wrap up here in just a minute, but that's been me. And, as I pointed out, and we were talking again before we started the video, I haven't been able to really make a lot of videos. And one thing that happened when I followed what was going on, but I wasn't all over Twitter.
Right.
I wasn't all just reading all this crap from tweets and all that. I was very disengaged from a lot of the things that I had, I guess, more or less been looking at or hearing nonstop prior to that. And you know what? I had a chance to focus on what I was dealing with in my own life, and it gave me a better perspective on things. And I think that's one thing to remember about all this. We get all this bombardment from mainstream media. We hear this stuff from indie media. You see what's going on all over social media. And I think that's part of the problem. It's driving a lot of people crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Really is. It's just driving people crazy. You're getting bombarded with stuff nonstop, 24/7. You know what? When I pulled back and I just started kind of watching this stuff at a more casual pace, it's not to say that I don't care about the foreign affairs, because I do. I know what's going to happen if that stuff keeps on. We're going to have serious problems, but ultimately, you need to take a step back and figure out, where can you spend your energy to get the most impact? You know what I mean? And this idea of chasing presidents and presidential elections, it's not really going to get you much anywhere.
Correct.
And I said this prior to my hiatus, but I'll say it again. You really want to start, making people notice something. Do what you can with your own money and start making impactful things from that. At home, try to look for more local business instead of supporting chains all the time.
Yeah.
If you're going to focus on elections, start learning more about the candidates around you in your own local election. That deals with right there on top of you. And one thing that I will say to Governor McMaster's credit, we've been hearing of this talk about the right and left, free college. We need free college. Well, you know what? My Republican governor did two things. And it kind of gave me a new perspective on McMaster. It's not to say I would agree with him on everything, but I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad move. There was enough money in the state budget that you can go to like Spartanburg Community College and sign up and get free classes. And that's been going on since last year. Wow. And the state did that. And another thing the state did was they found out they had enough money in the budget, or I guess whatever they budgeted for, they had more than enough money. They had a surplus. Yeah. They cut everybody a check.
Yeah.
And sent it back to you. You know what? So the federal government didn't do that for me. Joe Biden didn't do that for me. Donald Trump, I guess he gave the little stimulus checks or whatever. But you know what? This is all stuff that was done by my state. This is stuff that was done at more of the local level. And we need change. But if you think you're only going to get that change by going just to a ballot box and voting someone into Washington, D.C., no, we're going to have to learn how to organize, take to the streets, use our wallets, vote with your pocketbook a lot too. Mm-hmm. Vote with your wallet, vote with your debit card. Figure out who you want to spend money and give your money to. You know, one thing, and it hasn't impacted me much. I did a video on this last year. I stopped giving my money to Frito-Lay and Pepsi.
Yeah.
Unless I absolutely have to. They treat their workers like crap. You know what? And if enough people got behind stuff like that, these rich people don't want to lose money.
No.
You know?
No.
Well, and then this kind of hits woke culture, but I'll touch on one last thing and then I'll shut up for the day because we've been talking for a long time here. But I'm watching TV the other day and I'm like, okay, here's something else I'm not going to buy. And if enough people do things like this, they will take notice, they will change, they will cave. Yeah. Okay. This is how you really exert the power that you truly have, is if you can get enough people to do things like this. But have you seen what happened to M&M's?
Yeah.
Manyas. Really?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson. Tucker kind of broke them.
Tucker Carlson criticizes the shoes on the green M&M, and you just throw your whole branding you've had for years away, and you bring in Maya Rudolph from Saturday Night Live, the woman who likes to portray Kamala Harris. And can you see all the woke points we're trying? And we're just going to change our whole name to Manyas. And I'm like, really? It's gotten to this?
Yeah, I mean,
it's just stupid.
I mean, you're not. I mean, I've been around for a lot longer than you, and I tradition kind of means something. You know, once you've been around for a while, and you're an old school Southerner, but it's tragic to watch. And then they'll say it's just you're a boomer and you're this. And I'm like, no. I mean, these are things you get used to. It has nothing to do with age. It's like, here's a brand. Here's an iconic brand. You want to destroy the iconic brand to make some kind of a woke
brownie points. Yeah.
Right. And I tell you what, you know, one phrase that I do like that Governor DeSantis says about Florida, I don't know if it's 100% true, but he says, it's Florida is where woke comes to die.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that happens more. I'm sorry. The woke culture will be part of it. It's not the only thing, Charles, but it is probably close to the tip of the spear when it comes to what's going to bring this civilization down, because it just doesn't make any sense, and it's antithetical to humanity. And I said on one of my videos on the other channel, I said, these people, they say I'm this denier, I'm a climate denier, I'm a science denier. These people are reality deniers. They're reality deniers. And I can't live with people like that. So what's going to happen? We'll find out, right?
Yeah, I'll give this last line here. When I saw that commercial, I just turned to my wife and I said, you know what? You brought up the tradition and stuff, right? So you'll appreciate this. I turned to my wife and I said, you know what? I hope this flops as bad as New Coke.
Coke. See, you're You're not that old, but you remember how successful they had to reintroduce the old formula. Hey, here's classic Coke. And it's like, just
Right.
Coke. Just put it back
And
out
then
there.
eventually it flopped so hard they just got rid of it altogether and went back to Coke.
Right.
So that's what I hope. I hope that I hope this stupidity all the way around flops. I mean, it's just with all the stuff that we've got going on in the world today, and people are again. I mean, I brought it up to be fair, but it's to speak to our society as a whole.
Yeah.
That these are the things people are doing like it means something, and it's like, really, you're not going to bring any more equality to anything by rebranding M&Ms to Manya. So don't pretend that you are. And that's of course that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to make people think, oh, see, look what we're doing with this. We're removing sexuality from it. We're removing all. Just shut up.
And on that note, Charles, we're going to wrap things up. That was great. Yeah. Great to have you back on. Are you doing videos? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm going to get back into doing videos. Like I had said earlier, I don't know if we were recording yet or not, but I changed it from Lone Wolf Podcast to Lone Wolf Ace. If I get the time to start bringing on guests, I'll like title those Lone Wolf Podcasts. But with my time and schedule and stuff, when I start doing videos, I'm going to try to keep them more to about 5 to 10 minutes. Just going through and trying to edit, big long videos takes a lot of time. With everything I've got going on these days, it's a lot harder. It's easier like when I'm sitting talking to you, I don't have to go back and edit any of this to get it add anything in to get it up on YouTube. I'm just talking.
Yeah.
So but that being said, yeah, I'm gonna be back to doing videos. I'm gonna try to get to where I can get at least one out a week. And it was great to be back on the show, Dave. Glad we were able to sit down, have good conversation again. And yeah, anytime you want to do any videos or something, man, just let me know. One thing that I will say that the hiatus really did for me was it put everything into a lot of perspective. And it's like, you know what? These are the things that are important. These are the things that are not. And I'm not going to waste my time worrying about all this, ridiculous crap anymore. We need to be able to have conversations. We need to be able to talk to each other. With everything that's going on in the world today, bickering over differences of opinion or whatever amongst ourselves isn't doing one damn thing for us. So
yeah, well, I can't disagree with you there. All right, Charles, let's wrap it up here, because you and I we can go on for another hour and people will be like, what?
Save it for next week.
Yes, there you go. All right. Thanks again, Charles. Take it easy, brother. Don't work too hard out there.
All right. Take care, Dave.
All right.